What happens when a global superstar walks onto a daytime talk show expecting polite applause, but instead finds himself staring down a question that cuts straight into the deepest scar of his public life? The cameras are rolling. The audience is smiling. The hosts are ready. And no one, not even Will Smith, realizes that within minutes, the atmosphere inside the view will turn from warm television comfort into something sharp, electric, and unforgettable. Before we dive in, if you love intense, cinematic celebrity moments like this, subscribe to Crosstalk right now, hit that like button, and comment below. Because stories like this don't stay quiet for long. The studio lights glow brighter than they should. Will feels at the moment he steps out, that strange pressure behind the eyes that only comes when millions are watching live. Applause erupts, rolling toward him like a practiced wave. He smiles, that familiar movie star smile, the one that once felt effortless. Today, it takes effort. His suit fits perfectly, tailored down to the last inch, but there's a stiffness in his shoulders no fabric can hide. Joy Behar leans forward slightly as he approaches the table. Her smile is polite, sharp around the edges, the kind that suggests curiosity mixed with something else, something unsaid. Whoopi nods at him with a calm, unreadable expression. The other hosts exchange glances, subtle but noticeable if you know how to look. Will notices. He always notices. Will Smith, everyone. Whoopi says, and the audience cheers again, louder this time. Will waves, sits, adjusts the mic clip to his jacket. He tells himself this is fine. This is just another interview. But the air feels different. Joy is the first to speak after the pleasantries. Her voice is light, almost playful. Will, it's good to see you back out there. You've been through a lot. A ripple of laughter passes through the audience. The nervous kind that comes when everyone knows exactly what a lot means. Will chuckles softly, nodding. Yeah, he says. That's one way to put it. Inside, his chest tightens. He knew this was coming. He just didn't know how fast. They talk about his new project first, The Safe Territory. His words come out smooth, rehearsed but sincere. He speaks about growth, about time, about reflection. The audience listens, leaning in. For a few moments, the tension loosens. Will almost relax. Then Joy tilts her head. You've talked a lot about accountability, she says, her tone shifting just slightly. About understanding the impact of your actions. But a lot of people still feel like they never really got answers. The word hangs there. Answers. Will's smile fades just a fraction. Not enough for the casual viewer, but enough for the cameras to catch. He clasps his hands together on the table. I've tried to be as open as I can, he replies. I've owned my mistakes. Joy doesn't blink. Some would say owning a mistake is different from explaining it. The audience murmurs. A few heads turn toward Will. Someone in the front row shifts uncomfortably. Whoopi interjects gently, Joy. But Joy raises a hand, not rudely, just confidently. No, I think this is important. Will inhales slowly through his nose. He can feel the heat creeping up his neck. This isn't hostile, not yet. But it's no longer friendly either. People watched that moment, Joy continues, and they felt disappointed. Some felt betrayed. Others felt angry. And some felt you were protected because of who you are. Do you understand why? There it is. The unspoken accusation finally spoken aloud. The studio goes quiet. Not silent, just still. The kind of stillness that presses against your ears. Will looks down for a second, gathering himself. When he looks back up, his eyes are intense, focused. I understand why people felt that way, he says carefully. But I'm also human. And humans make mistakes. Joy leans back slightly. Sure. But not all mistakes happen on a global stage. A sharp intake of breath from somewhere in the audience. A woman whispers, Oh. Will's jaw tightens. He nods once, slow. That's true, he says. And I've paid for that in ways people don't always see. Joy's eyebrows lift. Have you? The word lands heavier than it should. Will feels it then, the shift. The sense that this is no longer about curiosity or conversation. This is a challenge. I lost projects, he says, his voice firming. I lost respect. I lost time with people who mattered to me. Joy's voice is calm, almost clinical. But you didn't lose your platform. You're still here. You're still being applauded. Applause breaks out again, scattered and uncertain, as if the audience isn't sure which side they're on anymore. Will turn slightly toward the crowd, then back to Joy. You think I should disappear? The question is direct. The tension spikes. Joy pauses, then shrugs lightly. I think some people wonder why others had to. A collective "oh" rolls through the studio. Whoopi shifts in her chair now, her expression tightening. Will laughs once, short and humorless. So this is a trial now, he asks. I came here to talk about growth, about moving forward. But it sounds like you want me frozen in one moment. Joy meets his gaze without hesitation. I want honesty. The word echoes. Will leans back, exhales. His voice lowers. Honesty is messy, he says. And sometimes people don't actually want it. They want punishment. The audience erupts, half applause, half stunned silence. Joy tilts her head again, eyes sharp. Or maybe they want accountability that matches the impact. Will leans forward now, elbows on the table. You don't get to decide what that looks like for someone else. A hush falls. Even the cameras seem to pause. Whoopi clears her throat. Okay, let's. But it's too late. The moment has already cracked open. Will and Joy stare at each other, neither backing down. The studio lights glare down on them, catching every flicker of emotion, pride, frustration, hurt, defiance. Somewhere behind the scenes, a producer is probably sweating. On social media, clips are already being clipped, captions already being written. And this is only the beginning. Because what started as a conversation is now something else entirely. And the next words spoken will change the tone of the room in ways no one saw coming. The silence stretches longer than anyone expects. It's not awkward. It's charged, like the moment before a storm finally breaks. Will can hear his own breathing through the mic, steady but louder than he wants it to be. Joy doesn't look away. Neither does he. Somewhere in the audience, a phone buzzes before quickly being silenced. Everyone knows they're watching something that isn't supposed to happen on daytime television. Whoopi finally leans forward, her voice calm but firm. Let's slow this down, she says. This isn't a courtroom. Joy turns slightly toward her, but her eyes never fully leave Will. No, she says, it's not. But it is a public conversation. And he's a public figure. Will nods once. And I agreed to that, he says. What I didn't agree to is being treated like a symbol instead of a person. That lands differently. The audience shifts again, the sound of bodies adjusting in their seats rippling across the studio. Joy exhales through her nose. You are a symbol, Will, she says. You've been one for decades. You were the good guy, the role model. And when symbols break, people feel it. Will's eyes narrow, not in anger, but in something closer to pain. So I'm not allowed to break? He asks quietly. I'm not allowed to have a moment where I fail? That's not what I said, Joy replies quickly. But it's what it sounds like, Will says, his voice rising just enough to be noticeable. It sounds like you're saying my humanity expired the moment I became successful. A murmur of agreement runs through part of the crowd. Someone claps once, then stops, unsure. Sonny Hostin leans in now, trying to soften the edge. Will, I think what Joy is getting at. Will raises a hand gently, not dismissive, but resolute. I hear what she's getting at. I've heard it for years now. Joy's lips press together. Then hear this too, she says. When you have power, your mistakes don't just affect you. Will nods slowly. I know that. Better than you think. He pauses, eyes drifting for just a second, as if something far away has pulled his attention. When he speaks again, his voice is different, lower, stripped of polish. You think I haven't replayed that moment 1,000 times? He says. You think I don't wake up some nights wishing I could undo it? That I could be invisible for just one day? The studio goes quiet again, but this time it's heavier. Even Joy's expression shifts, just slightly. Will continues, the words coming faster now, like a dam has cracked. You see the headlines. You see the memes. You don't see the conversations with my kids. You don't see the shame. You don't see the work it takes to stand back up when the world decides who you are in a single frame. Joy opens her mouth, then closes it. For the first time, she looks unsure. But here's the thing, Will says, straightening. Growth doesn't come from public humiliation. It comes from accountability, yes, but also from grace. A few people in the audience nod. Applause breaks out, hesitant at first, then stronger. Joy shakes her head. Grace is earned, she says. Will meets her gaze again. So is forgiveness. The word hits like a match dropped into dry grass. Joy leans back in her chair, folding her arms. You're asking for forgiveness from people you hurt, she says. But not everyone feels like you've actually addressed them. Will's brow furrows. Because I can't address everyone, he says. I can't live the rest of my life apologizing to strangers for a moment they'll never let me outgrow. A sharp gasp from the audience. Someone whispers, wow. Whoopi looks between them now, concern etched across her face. This is getting personal, she says. It is personal, Will responds immediately. It's been personal since day one. Joy leans forward again, her voice firmer now. Then let me ask you this, she says. Do you believe you would have been treated the same way if you weren't Will Smith? There it is. The question everyone's been dancing around. Will doesn't answer right away. He stares at the table at his own hands, flexing his fingers once. When he looks up, his eyes are intense but calm. No, he says honestly. I don't. The audience erupts, some clapping, some shaking their heads, some stunned by the bluntness. But not in the way you think, Will adds quickly. I was treated harsher because of who I was. Because people expected perfection. Because I represented something bigger than myself. Joy scoffs lightly. A lot of people would love that kind of harsh. Will's head snaps toward her, not aggressively but sharply. You think losing your reputation is a luxury? He asks. You think being reduced to one moment is a privilege? Joy's voice rises just a notch. You still have money, influence, a career. And I lost peace, Will fires back. Which one would you trade? The audience reaction is immediate, loud, divided, electric. Applause clashes with murmurs of dissent. The studio feels like it's splitting down the middle. Whoopi raises her voice now. Okay, we're going to take a breath. But Joy isn't done. You're asking for empathy, she says. But empathy goes both ways. Will leans back, eyes flashing. I've shown empathy, he says. I apologized publicly. Privately. Repeatedly. Joy tilts her head. To the right people? That does it. Will sits up straighter, his voice steady but edged with something unmistakable. You don't get to decide who the right people are in my life, he says. And you don't get to rewrite my intentions. The room is dead silent now. No murmurs. No whispers. Just breath and blinking lights. Joy stares at him, her expression hardening again. Then don't come on a show built on opinions and act surprised when you get one. Will smiles, but it's not warm. I didn't come here surprised, he says. I came here hoping. Hoping for what? Joy asks. For a conversation, Will replies. Not a verdict. The tension hangs thick in the air, unresolved, vibrating between them. Producers exchange frantic looks off camera. Social media is already exploding. Clips, captions, sides being taken in real time. And as the cameras keep rolling, it becomes clear to everyone watching. This isn't winding down. It's about to hit its most explosive moment yet. The tension doesn't fade when the cameras cut for a brief pause. If anything, it tightens. When they come back live, the audience senses it immediately. Something has shifted beneath the polished surface of daytime television. Will sits differently now, shoulders squared, jaw set. Joy adjusts her papers, though everyone knows she doesn't need them. The smiles are gone. What remains is raw. Whoopi looks straight into the camera, her voice measured. We're back, she says. And we're continuing a very real conversation. A ripple of nervous laughter moves through the crowd, quickly dying out. Joy turns to Will again, her tone controlled but unmistakably firm. Will, you said you came here hoping for a conversation, not a verdict. But conversations require listening, not just defending. Will nods slowly. I am listening, he says. But listening doesn't mean accepting every accusation as truth. Joy's eyes narrow slightly. Then let's talk about truth. The audience leans in as one. You've spoken about growth, Joy continues. About therapy. About reflection. But some critics say those words came after the consequences, not before. That they sound polished now because they had to. Will exhales, a long breath he doesn't try to hide. Of course they came after, he says. Growth usually does. A soft wave of reaction passes through the room. Some nods, some scoffs. You don't pre-grow, Will continues. You don't become better before you fail. You become better because you failed. Joy shakes her head. That sounds good, she says. But it doesn't erase harm. Will's voice sharpens just slightly. I never said it did. Sunny leans forward again, trying to bridge the gap. But Will, can you understand why people feel like you were allowed to rehabilitate your image in a way others aren't? Will turns toward her. Yes, he says. And I hate that. The answer surprises the room. I hate that the system works like that, Will continues. I hate that some people never get a second chance. But tearing me down doesn't fix that system. Joy interjects quickly. But benefiting from it while criticizing it is called being honest about reality. Will cuts in, then immediately stops himself. He raises a hand. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. The audience reacts to that, respectful murmurs, a few claps. Joy studies him for a moment. Then let me ask you something personal, she says. Not as a host, as a human being. Will nods once. Okay. Do you regret going on that stage at all? She asks. Not the action, the choice to be there. The question lands softly but deeply. Will's eyes drift upward, as if replaying the memory frame by frame. When he speaks, his voice is quieter now. Every day, he says. And also no. The audience murmurs again. I regret the pain, Will explains. I regret the example it set. But I don't regret being exposed. Because that moment forced me to confront parts of myself I'd been avoiding for years. Joy's expression tightens. So it was necessary? No, Will says firmly. It was costly. A beat. But growth often is. Joy leans back, arms crossing again. That sounds like rationalization. Will smiles faintly. Or reflection. They can look similar from the outside. The audience lets out a collective breath. Whoopi steps in. This is getting philosophical, she says, trying to lighten the mood. It doesn't quite work. Joy leans forward again, closer now. You keep asking for grace, she says. But grace is something you extend to others too. What about the people who felt unsafe seeing violence normalized? Will's eyes flash. I never normalized it, he says. I condemned it. Immediately. After applause, Joy counters. The room reacts instantly, gasps, murmurs, a sharp intake of breath. Will stiffens. For a moment, it looks like he might snap back. Instead, he pauses. Long, deliberate. You're right, he says finally. The applause was wrong. The admission stuns the studio. I should have stopped it, Will continues. I should have shut it down in that moment. That's on me. Joy's arms loosen slightly. Why didn't you say that before? Will looks at her, eyes tired. Because sometimes it takes time to see clearly when you're inside the storm. The audience applauds, louder now, more unified than before. Joy nods slowly, but her voice remains firm. Accountability means saying the uncomfortable thing even when it costs you. Will meets her gaze. And I'm saying it now. A long pause settles over the table. Then Joy says quietly, some people will never forgive you. Will nods. I know. And that has to be okay, she adds. Will's voice is calm. It is. The simplicity of the answer hits harder than any argument so far. The audience sits in stunned silence, the energy shifting again. Less combative, more contemplative. For the first time since the conversation began, the clash feels like it might be turning into something else. But then Joy speaks again, her voice softer but no less pointed. Do you think the industry will ever hold you to the same standard it holds others? She asks. Will doesn't hesitate this time. No, he says. And that scares me more than anything. Joy looks surprised. Why? Because if I'm not held accountable, Will says, then I'm not actually growing. I'm just being managed. The line lands like a quiet thunderclap. Whoopi exhales audibly. That's a lot, she says. Joy nods slowly, eyes never leaving Will. Then maybe this conversation matters more than either of us expected. The audience breaks into applause, strong, sustained, conflicted but real. The camera pulls back slightly, capturing the full table now. The tension hasn't vanished, but it's transformed. What began as confrontation is now something sharper, deeper, more dangerous in its honesty. And everyone can feel it. Whatever happens next won't just define this interview. It will define how this moment is remembered. The applause fades slowly, like a wave pulling back from shore, leaving behind a silence that feels earned rather than forced. Will sits still, hands folded, eyes forward. Joy glances down at the table, then back up at him, as if seeing him slightly differently now. Not absolved, not forgiven, but no longer just an argument to win. Whoopi breaks the quiet. This, she says softly, is why these conversations are hard. And necessary. The audience responds with a low hum of agreement. No cheering this time. No boos. Just presence. Joy turns to Will one last time, her voice quieter than it's been all hour. You know, she says, people will clip this. They'll choose sides. They'll decide who won. Will nods. They already have. Joy allows herself a small, knowing smile. Do you care? Will thinks about it. Really thinks. Then he shakes his head. I care about whether I was honest, he says. Winning doesn't mean much if you're still lying to yourself. That lands gently but deeply. The director's voice crackles faintly through an earpiece somewhere off camera. They're running out of time. Joy straightens. I don't agree with everything you've said, she admits. And I still think you benefited from a system that protects people at the top. Will meets her gaze. I agree with you there. That surprises her. She blinks. Then nods once. Then maybe the real question, she says, is what you do with that awareness. Will's answer comes without hesitation. I do better, he says. Even when no one's watching. The audience applauds again, this time not loud, not explosive, but steady. Respectful. Whoopi looks into the camera. We're going to leave it there, she says. Because sometimes the conversation shouldn't be wrapped up with a bow. The cameras pull back. The applause continues as the show cuts to commercial. But the moment doesn't end there. Within minutes, clips begin flooding social media. Headlines form in real time. Will Smith faces Joy Behar in tense on-air exchange. No easy answers. The View erupts into raw accountability debate. Audience divided after explosive Will Smith interview. On X, on Instagram, on TikTok, short clips loop endlessly. Joy's sharp questions. Will's quiet admissions. The line about losing peace. The admission about the applause being wrong. Comment sections become battlegrounds. One side calls Will brave, honest, human. Another calls him calculated, protected, unrepentant. Some praise Joy for asking what others wouldn't. Others accuse her of pushing too hard, of turning pain into spectacle. Even celebrities weigh in cryptic posts, vague captions about grace and accountability, likes that feel like endorsements without commitment. Backstage, Will stands, thanks the hosts politely. Joy nods to him, not warmly, not coldly, just honestly. There's no hug. There doesn't need to be. As he walks down the hallway, the noise of the studio fades. What remains is the echo of his own words. Not regret, not relief, just the weight of having said something true in a place that rarely allows it. Later that night, pundits argue on cable news. Psychologists are invited on to discuss public shame and redemption. Media analysts debate whether this was a turning point or just another chapter. But for the people who watched it live, who felt the room tighten, then loosen, something else lingers. Not resolution, recognition. That growth is messy. That accountability hurts. That forgiveness is never guaranteed. And that sometimes the most uncomfortable conversations are the only honest ones left. By morning, the clip has millions of views. And somewhere someone types, I don't know who I agree with, but I'm glad they talked. That's the aftermath no headline can capture. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Was this accountability or unfair pressure? Did Will say enough or not nearly enough? Was Joy asking the right questions or pushing too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your voice. And if you want more explosive cinematic stories like this, where celebrity moments collide with raw human truth, make sure you subscribe to Crosstalk right now. Because the conversations everyone argues about later, they start here.